She was forced to marry a disabled billionaire. He was her first time, now he won't let her go. Clara Hayes stood in Gabriel Sterling's bedroom, her wedding dress pooled at her feet, trembling as the man she'd been forced to marry just hours ago watched her from his wheelchair. The marriage contract her father signed to save their family from bankruptcy never mentioned this, never mentioned the way his dark eyes would pierce through her defenses, or how his gentle touch would make her forget this was just a business arrangement. "I don't want your pity, Clara," he whispered, rolling closer. "I want your truth." She'd expected coldness from the billionaire who'd lost everything in that accident 3 years ago. His athletic career, his fiancée, his ability to walk. Instead, she found a man whose loneliness matched her own terror. When he touched her hand that night, something shifted. The forced bride became a willing woman. The bitter billionaire became human again. But mourning would bring consequences neither expected. Because Gabriel Sterling didn't just take her innocence that night. He decided he'd never let her go, contract or not. Before we continue this incredible story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our emotional love stories. The silk sheets felt foreign against Clara's skin as she sat on the edge of the massive bed, her hands clutching the fabric of her wedding dress. Just 12 hours ago, she'd been standing in a courthouse, signing her life away to a stranger. Now Gabriel Sterling, the man who owned half of Los Angeles, the man whose accident had been front-page news 3 years ago, was watching her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. "You're shaking," he observed, his voice softer than she'd expected. The tabloids had painted him as cold, ruthless, broken, but the man before her seemed achingly human. "I've never—" Clara started, then stopped, heat flooding her cheeks. This wasn't supposed to happen. The contract said separate bedrooms. It said this was just for appearances. Gabriel's laugh was bitter. "The contract. Yes, that piece of paper your father signed to save his company." He wheeled himself closer, and Clara noticed how gracefully he moved, how his upper body had compensated for what the accident had taken. "Tell me, Clara, did your father explain why I wanted this marriage?" She shook her head, unable to look away from his face. He was handsome in a devastating way. Sharp jawline, dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead, and those eyes that seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed walls. "Everyone assumes it's for appearances. Poor Gabriel Sterling, the crippled billionaire who needs a wife to complete his image." His jaw clenched. "But that's not why I asked for you." "Then why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, because 3 years ago, before my accident, I saw you at a charity gala. You were arguing with your father about donating to a children's hospital instead of his political connections. You didn't know anyone was listening, but I was. You said, 'Money means nothing if it doesn't help someone who needs it.' I thought, here's someone who sees the world differently." Clara's breath caught. She remembered that night, remembered the fight, but she'd never known anyone had overheard. "After my accident, after Emily died in that crash, I convinced myself I'd never feel anything again. I built walls so high that no one could climb them, but when your father came to me, desperate, mentioning your name, I thought maybe fate was giving me a chance at something. Not love. I didn't believe in that anymore. But maybe connection. Maybe someone who could see me as more than this chair." "Gabriel," she started, but he held up his hand. "I'm not asking you to love me, Clara. I'm not even asking you to like me. But I am asking you to be honest. If you want to leave this room, go to your separate bedroom as the contract states. I won't stop you. But if you stay—" His voice dropped, became rougher. "If you stay, it won't be because of any contract." Clara found herself moving before her mind could catch up, dropping to her knees in front of his wheelchair so they were eye level. "What if I don't know what I want? What if everything in my life has been decided for me and I don't know how to choose anymore?" His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. "Then we figure it out together. No contracts, no obligations, just truth. The kiss that followed was nothing like Clara had imagined her first kiss would be. It wasn't practiced or perfect. It was desperate and searching, two broken people finding something whole in each other. When Gabriel pulled her onto his lap, when his hands tangled in her hair, when he whispered her name like a prayer, Clara understood that this wasn't about contracts or obligations anymore. "I need to tell you something," Gabriel said against her lips. "The accident. I'm not completely... I can still..." He struggled with the words, vulnerability cracking his usual composure. "The doctors said I was lucky. The paralysis is partial. I can still feel, still function. But I haven't been with anyone since Emily. I haven't wanted to be." "Until now?" Clara asked, her heart racing. "Until you," he confirmed, his hands framing her face. "But Clara, if we do this, I need you to understand something. I don't do things halfway. If you give yourself to me tonight, I won't be able to let you go. Not because of the contract, but because I'm selfish enough to want to keep the first good thing that's happened to me in 3 years." Clara thought about her father, about the debt, about the life she'd planned before everything fell apart. Then she looked at Gabriel, really looked at him. Not the wheelchair, not the billions, not the tragic story. Just the man who was looking at her like she was his salvation. "Maybe I don't want you to let me go," she whispered. What happened next was a careful dance of discovery. Gabriel was patient, reverent, treating her like she was made of spun glass. He talked her through every touch, every sensation, making sure she was comfortable, that she wanted this as much as he did. When he lifted himself from the wheelchair to the bed, Clara saw the immense strength in his arms, the determination that had built an empire from a hospital room. "You're beautiful," he told her, and the way he said it made her believe it. Not beautiful like the models he'd dated before his accident, but beautiful in a way that went deeper than skin. Their connection was more than physical. It was two souls recognizing each other across the divide of circumstance and pain. When Clara cried out his name, when Gabriel held her like she might disappear, when they lay tangled together afterward, both knew something fundamental had shifted. "What happens now?" Clara asked, tracing patterns on his chest. "Now," Gabriel said, pressing a kiss to her forehead, "we stop pretending this is just business." The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden stripes across the bedroom. Clara woke slowly, disoriented until she felt the warm weight of Gabriel's arm around her waist. The events of the night came rushing back, every touch, every whispered word, every moment that had transformed her from a reluctant bride into... What? What was she now? "You're thinking too loud," Gabriel murmured against her shoulder, his voice rough with sleep. "How can you tell I'm thinking?" Your whole body tenses up. It's like watching a spring coil. His hand splayed across her stomach, pulling her back against him. "Regrets?" Clara turned in his arms to face him, studying his face in the morning light. Without the armor of his expensive suits and calculating expression, he looked younger, more vulnerable. The scar that ran along his jaw, a reminder of the accident, seemed less harsh somehow. "No regrets," she said honestly, "but I'm scared." "Of what?" "That last night was just loneliness. That you'll wake up fully and remember you could have anyone. That my father will find out this became real and think I'm betraying him somehow. That the world will look at us and only see a business transaction." Gabriel's hand came up to tangle in her hair, tilting her head back. "First, it wasn't loneliness. I've been lonely for 3 years. I know what that feels like. This is different. Second, I don't want anyone else. Third, your father should be grateful his daughter has more heart than he deserves. And fourth," he kissed her, slow and deep, "let the world think what it wants. We know the truth." A knock at the door interrupted them. "Mr. Sterling?" It was Marcus, Gabriel's assistant. "Your 9 o'clock video conference with Tokyo is in 30 minutes. "Cancel it," Gabriel called back, not taking his eyes off Clara. "Sir, it's the Yamamoto acquisition. You've been working on this for 6 months. Clara started to pull away. "You should go. I don't want to interfere with— Stay, Gabriel said, his grip tightening. Then, louder, reschedule it for this afternoon, Marcus. There was a pause. Yes, sir. Also, Mrs. Sterling's father has called 3 times this morning. Clara's blood ran cold. Oh, God. He must be wondering. I should call him back. Should you? Gabriel asked, studying her face. What will you tell him? That his daughter spent the night falling in love with the enemy. You're not the enemy, Clara protested. And I didn't fall. She stopped, catching the word before it could escape. Didn't fall in what? Gabriel's voice was dangerously soft. Don't do that. Don't push me to say things that— It's too soon. Too complicated. Love is always complicated, he said. But that doesn't make it less real. Before Clara could respond, her phone rang. Her father's name flashed on the screen. With shaking hands, she answered. Clara? Thank God. I've been worried sick. Did he— Are you all right? He didn't hurt you? Dad, I'm fine. She felt Gabriel's eyes on her, watching every expression. Listen, sweetheart, I know this is difficult, but remember it's temporary. 6 months, that's all. Then the debt is clear, and you can divorce him quietly. Just keep your distance, don't let him manipulate you. Men like Sterling, they're sharks. The wheelchair doesn't change that. Clara felt sick. Dad, stop. I'm just trying to protect you. You're doing this for the family, for me, and I'm so grateful. But don't forget what this is. A business arrangement. Nothing more. I have to go, Clara said, ending the call before her father could say anything else. She turned to find Gabriel's expression had shuttered, the warmth from moments ago replaced by something colder. He's not wrong, Gabriel said, pulling himself up to sit against the headboard. I am a shark. Ask anyone in business. Gabriel, no. You should understand what you're getting into. I've destroyed companies without blinking. I've ruined men who crossed me. The accident didn't make me soft, Clara. If anything, it made me harder, more ruthless. Clara watched him rebuild his walls in real time, watched the vulnerable man from last night disappear behind the billionaire's armor. Why are you doing this? Because your father reminded me of reality. This is a business arrangement. Last night was— He paused, his jaw working. A mistake. The word hit Clara like a physical blow. You don't mean that. Don't I? But his voice cracked slightly, betraying him. Clara stood, pulling the sheet with her, suddenly needing distance. You know what your problem is, Gabriel. You're so terrified of being hurt again that you hurt yourself first. You'd rather be alone than risk feeling something. And you know what your problem is, he shot back. You've spent so long being what everyone else needs that you don't know what you want. They stared at each other across the bedroom, 2 wounded people who'd found comfort in each other, now using their knowledge like weapons. I should go to my room, Clara said quietly. The one the contract says is mine. Maybe you should. But neither of them moved. The air between them crackled with tension, with hurt, with want that wouldn't die just because logic demanded it. Finally, Gabriel broke. I'm sorry. Your father, hearing him talk about me like I'm some monster you need protection from. You're not a monster, Clara said, moving back toward the bed. You're a man who's been hurt and doesn't want to be hurt again. I understand that. Do you? She sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch but not touching. My mother died when I was 15. Cancer. For 2 years, I watched her fade away, watched my father pour everything into treatments that didn't work. After she died, he threw himself into his business, and I threw myself into being the perfect daughter, the one who never caused problems, never asked for anything, never put herself first. So yes, I understand being afraid to feel, afraid to want things for yourself. Gabriel's hand found hers. What do you want, Clara? Not what your father wants. Not what the contract says. What do you want? She looked at their joined hands, at the contrast of his tanned skin against her paleness. I want to know what this could be without contracts and debts and obligations. I want to know if what I felt last night was real or just circumstance. And how do we figure that out? Clara took a breath, gathering courage she didn't know she had. We date. Date? Gabriel looked genuinely confused. We're married. Exactly. We did everything backward. We got married. We slept together. But we don't know each other. Not really, so let's date. Dinners, conversations, all of it. But no more nights like last night. Not until we know what this is without the physical clouding everything. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. You want to live in the same house, be married, but not until we both know this is real. Can you do that? His thumb brushed over her knuckles. You're asking a man who's been celibate for 3 years to continue being celibate after the best night of his life. Clara's cheeks heated. Was it? The best night? Clara, he said, her name a growl, I'm paralyzed from the waist down, not dead. Yes, it was the best night. We were... He stopped, frustrated with words. Then prove it wasn't just physical, Clara challenged. Show me Gabriel Sterling, not the billionaire, not the tragedy, just the man. And I'll show you Clara, not the dutiful daughter, not the forced bride, just me. Gabriel studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Dinner tonight? A proper first date? I'd like that. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. Wear something beautiful, not for me, for you. Something that makes you feel like yourself. If this story is touching your heart, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do in Clara's situation? That evening, Clara stood in front of the mirror in her designated bedroom, surveying her options. Gabriel had sent up a selection of dresses, all designer, all exquisite, all definitely not her. She pushed them aside and pulled out the one dress she'd brought from home. A simple navy blue wrap dress her mother had bought her for her college graduation. You look like a professional, her mother had said, already thin from chemo but smiling. Like someone who knows her worth. Clara touched the fabric, remembering. Her mother would have liked Gabriel, she thought, would have seen past the wheelchair and the wealth to the man underneath. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling is ready for you in the dining room. The formal dining room had been transformed. Instead of the long table that could seat 20, a small round table had been set up by the windows, candles flickering, the lights of Los Angeles spread out below. Gabriel was there, in a simple black shirt and jeans, the most casual she'd seen him. You look... He paused, taking her in. Like yourself. Is that good? It's perfect. He pulled out her chair, the movement practiced despite the wheelchair, and Clara sat nervous in a way she hadn't been even on their wedding night. So, she said as wine was poured, tell me something nobody knows about Gabriel Sterling. He considered. I'm terrified of butterflies. Clara laughed, surprised. Seriously. Completely serious. When I was 5, I went to a butterfly garden with my parents. One landed on my face, and I was convinced it was trying to eat me. Never got over it. The mighty Gabriel Sterling brought down by butterflies. Your turn. Something nobody knows. Clara took a sip of wine. I write poetry. Terrible, angsty poetry that I hide in a notebook under my bed. Will you share one with me someday? Maybe, if you're good. They talked through dinner, about books, movies, travel dreams. Gabriel told her about the company he'd built from his hospital bed, the hours of physical therapy, the nights he'd wanted to give up. Clara shared stories of her mother, her abandoned dreams of being a teacher, the weight of always being the responsible one. Why teaching? Gabriel asked. I loved the idea of shaping minds, of being the person who helps someone discover what they're capable of. But after Mom died, Dad needed me in the business, and I couldn't say no. You say no to me, Gabriel pointed out. You're different. How? Clara considered. You see me, not just what I can do for you, but me. Even that first day when I came to your office to argue about the contract, you looked at me like I was a person, not just a solution to a problem. You were never just a solution, Gabriel said quietly. From the moment you walked in, furious and ready to fight, you were more. After dinner, he took her to his study, showing her the projects he was working on. Sustainable energy, affordable housing, a foundation for spinal injury research. This isn't the ruthless shark image you project, Clara observed, looking at the plans. "The shark thing works for business. But this—" He gestured to the papers. "This is what matters. Emily used to say money was just a tool. It took me losing everything that mattered to understand what she meant." "Tell me about her," Clara said gently. "Tell me about Emily." Gabriel was quiet for so long Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "She was light. Pure, uncomplicated light. We met in college, before I had anything. She loved me when I was just a kid with big dreams and a need to prove myself. The accident, it was my fault. I was driving, showing off in the new sports car I'd bought to celebrate closing my first major deal. It was raining. I took a turn too fast and—" His voice broke. Clara moved without thinking, wrapping her arms around him from behind the wheelchair. "She died on impact. I woke up 3 days later, paralyzed, and she was gone. For a long time, I wished I'd died too." "But you didn't," Clara said against his shoulder. "You survived for a reason. I used to think the reason was punishment. Now—" He turned his chair so he could see her face. "Now I think maybe the reason was you." The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Clara wanted to kiss him, wanted to fall into his arms and let the physical wash away the emotional intensity. But she'd set the rules, and she needed to stick to them. "It's getting late," she said instead. "I should go." Gabriel caught her hand as she turned to leave. "Clara, thank you. For dinner, for listening, for seeing me. Thank you for letting yourself be seen." The next weeks fell into a rhythm. Breakfast together, Gabriel working while Clara took online courses to finish her teaching degree, something Gabriel had insisted on. Evenings were for them, dinners, movies, long talks that stretched into the night. They were falling in love in reverse, building the foundation they'd skipped. But the outside world wouldn't leave them alone. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Clara was having lunch with Gabriel in his office when Marcus burst in, tablet in hand, face grim. "Sir, you need to see this." The headline screamed across the screen. "Gold Digger Clara. How a Nobody Trapped a Broken Billionaire." The article was vicious, painting Clara as a calculating opportunist who'd conspired with her father to trap Gabriel in his vulnerable state. There were photos, Clara shopping with the credit card Gabriel had given her, Clara at the spa, Clara laughing with a male barista at a coffee shop. "They make me look like—" Clara couldn't finish, her hands shaking. "Don't read it," Gabriel said, but his voice was deadly calm. The shark was back. "Marcus, find out who leaked this. I want them destroyed." "Gabriel, no," Clara said. "You can't fight every battle for me. Watch me." But the damage was done. The story went viral. Clara's phone exploded with messages, old friends asking if it was true, strangers calling her horrible names. Someone leaked the marriage contract, and suddenly everyone knew their marriage was a business arrangement. "I can't go outside," Clara said that night, curled on the couch. "There are photographers everywhere. They're calling me a prostitute, saying I sold myself." Gabriel pulled her against him. "Let me fix this, one press conference, and I'll tell them the truth." "What truth? That it is a business arrangement? That my father did sell me to save his company? That I'm falling in love with you anyway?" The last part slipped out before she could stop it. Gabriel went still. "You're falling in love with me?" Clara pulled away, panicking. "I didn't mean— It's too soon. We said we'd take it slow." "Clara." He caught her face in his hands. "I fell in love with you the moment you stood in my office and told me you weren't anyone's property, contract or no contract. I've been falling deeper every day since." "Gabriel, I know we said we'd wait, but I need you to know, this isn't the contract for me anymore. It never really was. You're not here because your father owes me money. You're here because I'm too selfish to let you go." Clara kissed him then, pouring weeks of restraint and longing into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Your bedroom or mine?" Gabriel asked, his voice rough. "Yours," Clara said. "Mine doesn't have you in it." This time was different from their wedding night. This time they knew each other, really knew each other. Every touch was informed by weeks of conversation, of building trust, of falling in love the way they should have from the beginning. When Gabriel whispered, "I love you," against her skin, Clara believed him. When she said it back, she meant it with every fiber of her being. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Gabriel said, "Marry me." Clara laughed. "We're already married." "No, really marry me. Not for a contract, not for your father's debt, but because you want to. Because I want to. Let's have a real wedding, with your friends and my family, where everyone knows this is our choice. The press will have a field day. Let them. I want the world to know you're mine by choice, not circumstance." Before Clara could answer, Gabriel's phone rang. It was Marcus. "Sir, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's been an incident. Mr. Hayes, Clara's father, he's in the hospital. Heart attack." Clara's world tilted. "What? When? Is he—" Gabriel took the phone, putting it on speaker. "Marcus, details. Now." "He collapsed an hour ago at his office. He's at Cedars-Sinai in surgery. The doctors, they're not sure he'll make it." Clara was already up, pulling on clothes with shaking hands. "I have to go. I have to be there." "We'll go," Gabriel corrected, transferring himself to his wheelchair with practiced efficiency. "Marcus, have the car ready." The ride to the hospital was a blur. Clara sat frozen, Gabriel's hand in hers, the only thing keeping her grounded. "This is my fault," she whispered. "The stress of the company, the contract, the scandal in the papers. I did this to him." "No," Gabriel said firmly. "Your father's decisions led to this. His choices, his stress. You saved him, Clara. You gave him a chance." At the hospital they found chaos. Reporters had already gathered, shouting questions as Gabriel's security cleared a path. In the waiting room, Clara's Aunt Helen sat crying. "Clara, thank God you're here. He's been in surgery for 2 hours. They said the next few hours are critical." Clara collapsed into a chair, the weight of everything crashing down. Gabriel stayed beside her, a silent pillar of strength, fielding calls and keeping the press at bay. 4 hours later, a doctor emerged. "Mrs. Sterling, your father is stable. The surgery was successful, but he'll need significant recovery time. He's asking for you." Clara found her father looking small and fragile in the hospital bed, machines beeping around him. His eyes opened when she entered. "Clara, my sweet girl, I'm so sorry." "Dad, don't. Just rest." "No, I need to say this. I've been a terrible father. I used you to save myself, traded you like property. Your mother would be ashamed of me." Tears ran down Clara's face. "Dad, stop. That man, Sterling, does he treat you well?" Clara thought of Gabriel in the waiting room, how he'd held her through the terror. "He loves me, Dad, really loves me, and I love him." Her father's eyes widened. "But the contract, forget the contract. We found something real despite it, maybe even because of it." "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," Clara said honestly, "but you have it anyway. Now rest. Get better. We'll figure out the rest later." When she returned to the waiting room, she found Gabriel surrounded by lawyers, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression fierce. "What's happening?" she asked Marcus. "Mr. Sterling is restructuring your father's debt. He's converting it to a long-term, interest-free loan and investing in the company as a partner rather than a creditor. Your father won't lose anything." Clara's heart swelled. She waited until Gabriel finished his call, then pulled him aside. "Why are you doing this?" "Because your father is going to be my father-in-law, really my father-in-law, not just on paper. And because you've already lost one parent, I won't let you lose another over money." "Gabriel Sterling," Clara said, framing his face with her hands. "Yes, yes, yes, I'll marry you again, for real, in front of everyone, so the whole world knows I choose you." He pulled her down for a kiss that had several nurses clearing their throats. When they broke apart, Gabriel was grinning, a real unguarded smile that transformed his face. "When?" "As soon as Dad's better. I want him to walk me down the aisle." To give me away properly this time, to a man he knows will cherish me. The next months were a whirlwind. Clara's father recovered slowly but steadily. The physical therapy was grueling, but he approached it with new determination, especially after Clara told him about the real wedding. "I want to do this right," he said during one visit. "I want to stand beside you, not from a wheelchair." Gabriel, who was there for the visit, spoke up. "There's nothing wrong with a wheelchair, Mr. Hayes. I should know." Her father had the grace to look ashamed. "You're right, I'm sorry. I've had a lot of wrong ideas about a lot of things." The media attention didn't die down, but Gabriel and Clara learned to ignore it. They were too busy building their life together. Clara started her teaching degree online. Gabriel involved her in his charitable foundations, and slowly they created a world that was theirs. But not everyone was happy about their happiness. Richard Chen, Marcus from the earlier betrayal, had been Gabriel's business rival for years. The Sterling Group had beaten him to several major acquisitions, and when he learned about the marriage contract, he saw an opportunity for revenge. One evening, 2 months before their planned wedding, Clara was alone in the mansion. Gabriel was in New York for a meeting, and she was enjoying a quiet night with a book and wine. The doorbell rang, unusual, since visitors had to get through the gate first. When she opened the door, Richard Chen stood there, his smile cold. "Mrs. Sterling, we need to talk." "How did you get past security?" "Money opens many doors. May I come in?" Every instinct screamed danger, but Clara kept her voice calm. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it from there." "Very well." He pulled out a tablet, showing her a video. "This is security footage from Gabriel's office building. 3 months ago, the night before your wedding." Clara watched, confused, as the video showed Gabriel meeting with someone she didn't recognize. "That man," Richard said, "is James Morrison, an actor. Your husband paid him $50,000. So, to seduce you, Mrs. Sterling, to test if you'd be faithful. Gabriel wanted to know if you could be trusted, so he hired someone to try to compromise you, the ultimate prenup test." Clara's blood ran cold. "You're lying." "Am I?" Richard produced documents, bank transfers. "He's playing you, Mrs. Sterling. Has been from the beginning. The paralysis, not as complete as he claims. I have medical records. He can walk. Chooses not to for sympathy. The accident? He was drunk, not just driving fast. Emily's family was paid millions to keep quiet." Each word was a blow, each revelation designed to shatter her world. Clara's hands shook as she looked at the papers, all of them seemingly legitimate. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Gabriel Sterling destroyed my father's company 10 years ago, bought it in a hostile takeover and broke it apart for parts. My father never recovered, died of a stroke 2 years later. I want Gabriel to know what it feels like to lose everything." After Richard left, Clara sat in the dark, the document spread before her. Could it be true? Had everything been a lie? She thought about calling Gabriel, demanding answers, but something held her back. Instead, she called the one person she trusted completely, her mother's sister, Helen, who was a private investigator. "I need you to verify some documents," Clara said. "Quietly?" 2 days later, Helen called back. "They're forgeries. Good ones, but forgeries. The medical records are falsified. The bank transfers doctored. Whoever did this went to a lot of trouble." Relief flooded Clara, followed quickly by anger. Richard Chen had tried to destroy them with lies, but more than that, he'd made her doubt, even for a moment, the man she loved. When Gabriel returned from New York, Clara was waiting. "We need to talk," she said, leading him to his study. She showed him everything: Richard's visit, the documents, Helen's findings. Gabriel's expression grew darker with each word. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "You investigated instead of believing him," he said finally. "I investigated instead of confronting you without facts. There's a difference. You could have doubted me. These are convincing lies." Clara moved to sit on his lap, her arms around his neck. "Gabriel, I know you. I know the sound you make when your legs hurt, but you don't want to admit it. I know you still have nightmares about Emily. I know you donate anonymously to spinal research because you don't want people to think you're buying good press. I know you. Richard Chen's lies couldn't change that. Gabriel buried his face in her neck. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. We deserve each other. Now, what are we going to do about Chen? The shark smile returned. We're going to destroy him, but legally, thoroughly. He'll wish he'd never heard the Sterling name. But Clara had a different idea. Or we could show him something he doesn't expect. Grace. Grace? Invite him to the wedding. Gabriel pulled back to look at her. You want to invite the man who tried to destroy us to our wedding? I want to show him he failed, that what we have is stronger than his hate, that love wins. Clara, his father died bitter and broken. He's heading the same way. Maybe seeing happiness, real happiness, will change something, and if not, at least we took the high road. Gabriel studied her for a long moment. You're either the wisest or most naive person I've ever met. Maybe both. Will you trust me? With my life. The invitation to Richard Chen caused a media sensation. Speculation ran wild about why Gabriel Sterling would invite his known enemy to his wedding. Richard himself was so shocked he called Gabriel directly. What game are you playing, Sterling? No game, Gabriel replied, Clara's hand in his. My wife believes in second chances, in choosing love over hate. Consider this your second chance, Chen. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're loving this story of love conquering all obstacles. Share in the comments. Would you invite your enemy to your wedding? The wedding day arrived with perfect California sunshine. The ceremony was in the garden of Gabriel's Malibu estate, overlooking the ocean. Clara had chosen simple elegance, a flowing white dress that moved like water, her mother's pearl necklace, her only jewelry. Her father, still weak but determined, stood ready to walk her down the aisle. You look like your mother, he said, tears in his eyes. She would be so proud of the woman you've become. Dad, before we do this, I need you to know I forgive you, completely. What's done is done, and it led me to Gabriel, so I can't regret it. You're a better person than I deserve as a daughter. You're the only father I have. That's enough. The music started, and they began the walk. Clara saw Gabriel at the altar, standing, with the help of specialized leg braces he'd been working with in secret for months. The effort it took was visible on his face, but he stood tall, waiting for her. The audience gasped. This was the first time Gabriel had stood publicly since the accident. The statement was clear. For Clara, he would stand. For Clara, he would do anything. When Clara reached him, tears streaming down her face, Gabriel whispered, I wanted to stand for you, to show everyone that you make me stronger. You didn't have to prove anything, she whispered back. I wasn't proving. I was promising. I will always stand for you one way or another. The ceremony was beautiful, their vows personal and profound. Gabriel spoke of finding light in darkness, of Clara being his resurrection. Clara spoke of choosing love over fear, of Gabriel being her courage. You were forced to marry me once, Gabriel said during his vows. Today I'm the one forcing myself to be the man you deserve, forcing my broken body to stand, forcing my guarded heart to stay open. Because you, Clara Sterling, are worth every effort, every struggle, every moment of pain that led me to you. Clara's vows were equally moving. They say I was forced to marry you. The truth is, I was forced to see past my own fears, forced to be brave, forced to believe in love again. And I'm grateful for that force because it brought me you. Today I choose you freely, completely, eternally. When they kissed, the applause was thunderous. Even Richard Chen, sitting in the back, wiped at his eyes, though he'd deny it later. The reception was magical. Gabriel had learned to dance in his wheelchair, and their first dance to At Last by Etta James brought everyone to tears. Clara's father made a speech apologizing publicly for the contract, praising Gabriel for being the son-in-law he never deserved, but was grateful for. But the most surprising speech came from Richard Chen. I came here as an enemy, he said, his voice carrying across the garden. I wanted to destroy what you had because I was destroyed. But watching you today, seeing real love, real forgiveness. I realize I've been fighting the wrong battle. Gabriel, Clara, you've shown me something I'd forgotten existed. Grace. I'm dissolving my vendetta. More than that, I'm donating half my wealth to your spinal injury foundation. Maybe it's time to build instead of destroy. The room was stunned silent, then erupted in applause. Gabriel rolled to Richard, extending his hand. Richard took it, and just like that, an enemy became, if not a friend, at least not an enemy. As the evening wound down, Clara found herself on the terrace with Gabriel, watching the sunset over the Pacific. "No regrets?" Gabriel asked, echoing his question from months ago. "No regrets," Clara confirmed, "though I do have one question." "What's that?" "The standing. How long have you been practicing?" Gabriel grinned. 6 months. The doctors said there was a chance, with intense therapy, I could stand for short periods. I wanted to surprise you. Will you walk again? Fully? Maybe. Probably not. Does it matter? Clara kissed him deeply. Not even a little. I fell in love with you in that chair. Walking is just a bonus. There's something else, Gabriel said, pulling out an envelope. Your wedding gift. Inside was a deed to a school, the Clara Sterling Academy for Underprivileged Youth. Gabriel, this is your dream, to teach, to shape minds. This is your school, to run as you see fit. No boards to answer to, no bureaucracy, just you making a difference. Clara was sobbing now, overwhelmed. How did you? I bought the building months ago, had it renovated. It's ready for students whenever you are. This is too much. Nothing is too much for you, besides it's selfish. Happy wife, happy life, right? Clara laughed through her tears. I love you. God, I love you so much. I love you too, forever. Forever. A year later, Clara stood in her school, watching her first class of students work on their art projects. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, 7 months pregnant with their first child. Gabriel had cried when she told him, terrified and elated in equal measure. Will I be a good father, he'd asked. What if the child is ashamed of me, of the chair? Then we'll teach them that strength comes in many forms, Clara had replied, that their father is the strongest man I know, not despite the chair, but because of how he's lived with it. Now watching her students, many of whom came from backgrounds like her father's employees' children, struggling families who needed hope, Clara felt complete. The school was thriving. The foundation was helping hundreds of spinal injury patients, and their love had become something of a legend in Los Angeles. The forced marriage that became a love story. Mrs. Sterling? One of her students, Maria, approached. Is it true you were forced to marry Mr. Sterling? Clara considered her answer. I was given a choice that didn't feel like a choice, but sometimes what feels forced becomes the greatest freedom. Mr. Sterling freed me from a life of playing it safe, of being what everyone expected, and I freed him from believing he wasn't worthy of love. So yes, we were forced together, but we chose to stay together, and that choice made all the difference. That's beautiful, Maria said. Like a fairy tale. Better than a fairy tale, Clara corrected. Fairy tales end with happily ever after, as if that's a destination. Real love is a choice you make every day. It's choosing to stand together when standing is hard. It's choosing to see the best in someone when the world sees the worst. It's choosing love over fear, hope over cynicism, forgiveness over revenge. That evening, Clara came home to find Gabriel in his study, but he wasn't alone. Her father was there, along with Richard Chen, and they were looking at plans. What's this? Clara asked. A new project, Gabriel explained. Your father's company, my resources, and Richard's connections. We're building affordable housing with integrated medical facilities, specifically for families dealing with catastrophic injuries. Clara looked at the 3 men, the husband she was forced to marry, the father who forced her, and the enemy who tried to tear them apart, all working together. How did this happen? Her father smiled. Richard came to me with the idea, said seeing you two made him want to build something meaningful, and Gabriel, well, he never could resist a good investment. It's not about investment, Gabriel corrected. It's about legacy, What we leave behind, our child will grow up in a world we help shape. I want that world to be better. Richard stood to leave. I should go. But Clara, I wanted to apologize again. What I tried to do was unconscionable. You're forgiven, Clara said simply. That's what we do in this family, we forgive and move forward. After Richard left and her father retired to the guest room, he'd been staying with them during his ongoing recovery, Clara curled up in Gabriel's lap. Our family is weird, she said. The best families are, Gabriel replied, his hand on her belly. Speaking of which, I have something to tell you. What? I took my first unassisted steps today, 3 of them. The doctors are amazed. Clara sat up to look at him. Gabriel, that's incredible. I'm not getting my hopes up for a full recovery, but maybe by the time this little one starts walking, I'll be able to walk with them, at least a little. And if not, then I'll race them in my chair. Either way, I'll be there. I'll be. Clara kissed him, pouring all her love into the connection. When they broke apart, she said, You know what the tabloids are calling us now? What? The miracle marriage. They say our love cured you. Gabriel laughed. Love didn't cure my paralysis, but it did cure my paralysis of the heart. That's miracle enough. As they sat together watching the sun set over Los Angeles, Clara thought about the journey that brought them here. A forced marriage, a desperate father, a broken billionaire, and a woman who had no choice, all the ingredients for disaster. Instead, they'd found love. Do you ever think about what would have happened if my father hadn't needed that money? Clara asked. We would have found each other anyway, Gabriel said confidently. Some things are meant to be. You don't really believe in fate. I didn't. But then you walked into my life, forced by circumstance, and chose to stay by choice. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. Clara thought about arguing, but instead she just held him closer. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was chance. Maybe it was just 2 broken people choosing to heal together. Whatever it was theirs. The baby kicked, and Gabriel's face lit up with wonder, his hand moving to feel the movement. Strong kid, he said. Like their father. Like both their parents, Gabriel corrected. You're the strongest person I know, Clara Sterling. Clara kissed him, pouring all her love into the connection. When they broke apart, she said, You know what the tabloids are calling us now? What? The miracle marriage. They say our love cured you. Gabriel laughed. Love didn't cure my paralysis, but it did cure my paralysis of the heart. That's miracle enough. As they sat together, watching the sun set over Los Angeles, Clara thought about the journey that brought them here. A forced marriage, a desperate father, a broken billionaire, and a woman who had no choice. All the ingredients for disaster. Instead, they'd found love. Do you ever think about what would have happened if my father hadn't needed that money? Clara asked. We would have found each other anyway, Gabriel said confidently. Some things are meant to be. You don't really believe in fate. I didn't. But then you walked into my life, forced by circumstance, and chose to stay by choice. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. Clara thought about arguing, but instead she just held him closer. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was chance. Maybe it was just 2 broken people choosing to heal together. Whatever it was theirs. The baby kicked, and Gabriel's face lit up with wonder, his hand moving to feel the movement. Strong kid, he said. Like their father. Like both their parents, Gabriel corrected. You're the strongest person I know, Clara Sterling. We're strong together, Clara said. That's what matters. As the stars came out over the Pacific, Gabriel began planning. The baby's room, the adaptive equipment they'd need, the ways to make sure their child never saw the wheelchair as a limitation, but as simply part of who their father was. Clara watched him. This man she'd been forced to marry, this billionaire who'd become her salvation even as she became his, and felt nothing but gratitude. Not for the money or the mansion or the fairy tale ending, but for the love they'd built from the ashes of obligation. What are you thinking? Gabriel asked, catching her staring. That I'm glad my father's company failed, Clara said honestly. I'm glad I was forced to marry you. I'm glad for every single thing that led to this moment. Even the pain. Especially the pain. It taught us to value the joy. Gabriel pulled her closer, and they sat in comfortable silence, two souls who'd found each other through the strangest of circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from it. Their story would be told for years, the forced marriage that became a love story, the paralyzed billionaire who stood for love, the bride who chose chains and found freedom. But for Clara and Gabriel, it was simpler than that. It was just love. Complicated, messy, forced, chosen, difficult, beautiful love. And it was more than enough. It was everything. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more emotional love stories. Share in the comments what you thought about Clara and Gabriel's journey, from forced marriage to true love. Remember, sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the most unexpected ways. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our next heartwarming story.